Welcome to Whispers of the Night. Tonight, I'll be guiding you into a gentle fairy tale world in a story called The Forest of Dreams. Together, we'll wander along quiet paths where lanterns glow softly and stories drift like falling leaves. As you listen, there's no need to do anything at all. Simply let my voice carry you like a soft breeze through the trees into a place of calm and safety. This time is for you, a chance to set aside the day and step into the comfort of night. Before we begin our journey through the forest, let's take a little time to relax. Start by noticing the surface beneath you, the bed that holds your body with steady support. Allow yourself to sink deeper, as though the earth itself were cradling. You gently close your eyes and let the muscles around them grow soft. Notice your jaw. Let it loosen, as though a heavy stone has been lifted. Feel the rise and fall of your breath, slow and easy, like waves against a quiet shore with each breath in. Imagine you are drawing in calm like cool night air, and with each breath out, let go of the day like leaves drifting down from tall trees. Your shoulders release. Your arms grow heavy, your legs soften into stillness. Imagine a soft, golden lantern glow wrapping gently around your body, keeping you safe and warm. The world grows quieter, as though snow were falling silently all around. You are safe, you are cared for, and there is nowhere else you need to be. As your breath deepens, you find yourself already at the edge of the dream forest, ready to step inside. The Forest of Dreams. Lantern light and wandering voices. The first thing you notice is the light, not the harsh glare of modern lamps, but the softer, amber glow that seems to breathe. It gathers in round puddles on the cobblestones, where the uneven stones catch it at different angles, breaking it into glints and shadows. Somewhere between the edges of these glowing pools, the dark swells like water, deepening in the narrow alleys, pressing close in the places where the road bends. It is here, in this shifting tide of light and dark, that your footsteps fall in. Slow rhythm. The lanterns are old-fashioned, oil-fed, glass-eyed, their flames trembling in the evening air. The flame is a living thing, drawing in oxygen, exhaling heat, fluttering when the wind makes a brief, curious pass. If you were to lean close, you would see tiny rivers of molten fuel licking the wick, a miniature chemistry lesson written in gold and shadow. It's a flame like this that has lit countless journeys, long before electricity, before switches and filaments and the steady hum of wires. There is a strange comfort in knowing that the physics is the same, now as it was centuries ago. Oil vaporizing. At the wick's edge, oxygen molecules colliding with carbon and hydrogen, bonds breaking, energy blooming as light and heat. The light seems soft, only because your eyes, guided by the biology of ancient nights, adjust to the darkness around it, widening the pupils to catch each wandering photon. It's not just sight, it's a kind of listening, but with your eyes, tuned to the faintest flicker. You walk on, and the road begins to slope gently downward, where the houses lean in, their timbered beams and plaster faces close enough that the lantern light brushes their walls. From behind one shuttered window comes the faint hum of a human voice. It's not speech exactly, not yet, more the slow rising and falling of someone in mid-tale. And then you realize this is the sound that has traveled farther than any wheel or ship, the human voice, vibrating air carried on currents, shaped into meaning by breath and muscle. The science is hidden in the softness. A column of air rises from the lungs, passes through the vocal folds, which touch and part hundreds of times a second, creating waves in the surrounding air. Those waves spread, touching every surface, every listener's ear, where a membrane not much thicker than silk catches them and translates them into electric whispers for the brain. It is a miracle so familiar we forget it is one you follow. The voice until you reach a small square where people have gathered. No chairs, no stage, just a circle of faces turned toward the speaker. The storyteller stands with a simple staff in hand, perhaps for balance, perhaps as an unspoken punctuation mark. They are speaking not to an audience, but into the night itself, their words curling upward like smoke toward the stars. It strikes you that for most of human history, this was the only kind of broadcast. No printing presses, no recordings, no glowing screens. Stories lived in memory, in muscle, in the fragile thread of a person's recall. To keep a story alive meant telling it again and again, passing it from one mind to another, like handing a flame from one lantern to the next. In this way, a tale could cross mountains, deserts, oceans, carried in the memories of traders, pilgrims, wanderers. Memory itself is not a fixed shelf of items, but a living, changing garden. When you remember, you are not retrieving a perfect recording, but rebuilding it from scattered traces, patterns of connections between neurons, reawakened by cues. This means each telling subtly reshapes the tale. In the warmth of a room, with the wind scratching at the shutters, a teller might draw out the danger of a storm. In a sunlit tea house, with cups clinking and the scent of jasmine in the air, the same tale might tilt toward humor. Stories adapt to the listeners, breathing the spaces. There are no distractions, no glowing screens in their palms, only the shared darkness, the shared light, and the steady flow of a voice that feels both near and infinite. This kind of listening is different. It is whole-body listening. Your ears take in the tone and rhythm, but your skin catches the low thrum of certain vowels, and your heart unconsciously syncs with the cadence of the tale. It is as if the storyteller is not simply speaking to you, but through you, their voice resonating in the small chambers of bone and breath that make you a listener. A breeze carries the scent of something sweet, maybe roasted chestnuts from a nearby stall. Scent, too, is a keeper of memory. The science is simple but astonishing. Molecules drift into your nose, bind to receptors, send direct signals to the brain's olfactory bulb, which is nestled close to the hippocampus, a deep structure tied to memory and emotion. This is why a single whiff can unravel a scene from years ago. Perhaps for someone in the square, the smell tonight will forever be tied to this voice. This lantern-lit gathering dot, the storyteller moves between worlds with ease. One moment you are in a coastal village where fishermen speak to the tide. The next you are in a mountain pass where winter waits like a patient animal. The journey costs nothing but attention, and the ticket is simply the willingness to be carried. There is a quiet democracy in it. The rich merchant and the barefoot child both lean in, drawn by the same spell. Somewhere in the flow of words, you find yourself thinking of light again. The lantern here in the square sways slightly, and for a moment, the storyteller's face is in shadow, then bright, then shadow again. In that gentle alternation, you realize how human beings are tuned to contrast light against dark, sound against silence, presence against absence. The spaces between the words, like the shadows between lantern pools, are part of the shape of the story. Without them, the brightness would be blinding. The tale ends not with a sharp conclusion, but with a lingering image, a door opening onto an unseen garden. The crowd exhales, a long shared breath, and then the quiet rises like mist. People murmur to each other. Some slip away into the lanes. Others linger, as if not ready to let the warmth dissolve. You walk on the road, now lit by fewer lanterns, the pools of light farther apart. The voice of the storyteller is gone, but the rhythm remains in your steps, as if the words have settled somewhere inside you, still glowing. You think about how, in 1,000 different languages, on countless nights, this same ritual has happened. A gathering, a voice, a shared flame of attention. It is older than writing, older than towns, older, perhaps, than the road beneath your feet. The night deepens, the lanterns grow rarer, the silence wider. Above, the stars have emerged points of light that traveled millions of years to reach. This square, this road, this moment when you lift your eyes to them. And here is another kind of storytelling, the slow, ancient tale written in starlight, waiting to be read. Ashes, briars, and spun gold. The room is warm in the way winter rooms should be, not the instant dry heat of a modern radiator, but the deep, breathing warmth that radiates from stone and brick, steeped in hours of fire. The hearth before you is a wide-mouthed thing, blackened by years of use. Within it, embers glow like sleeping hearts, each one fading and brightening in its own slow pulse. You watch them shift, crackle, and sigh, shedding faint sparks that lift and vanish in the dim air. The sound is part of the spell, the soft crumble of ash, the muted pop of trapped moisture escaping from wood. Somewhere beyond the circle of firelight, a spindle hums. It is a low, steady whir, the sound of twist and pull, twist and pull, as fibers drawn from a tuft of wool or a hank of flax become thread. The spindle is simple: a stick, a weight, a small rotation of the hand, but the science behind it is as old and intricate as any palace clock. Fibers are made of long microscopic chains, cellulose in plants, protein in wool, and when twisted together, they grip one another with tiny hooks and coils. Twist adds friction, friction adds strength, and suddenly something too fragile to hold on its own becomes a line strong enough to weave into cloth. It's a quiet alchemy, taking loose, wandering fibers and making them one dot as the thread gathers. So, to do the stories, you can almost hear them lining up at the edge of the firelight, ready to slip inside. Cinderella arrives first, though she does not yet wear a gown of shimmering silk. In others, she wears ash upon her skin, the cinders from the hearth staining her like ink. The name Cinderella changes as it travels: Cendrillon in French, Aschenputtel in German, Yaschen in an old Chinese tale. But always she waits, quietly, until her moment comes. The tale has its roots in more than one place. Anthropologists have traced versions of the Cinderella story back over 2,000 years. The magical aid, the recognition scene, the triumph against odds. Like threads spun from many fibers, the versions twist together, each one strengthening the others. Surviving centuries of retelling, the embers shift again, and in their glow another figure steps forward, a girl in a gown the color of sunrise, her hands reaching toward a spindle. Sleeping Beauty, Briar Rose, Talia. Her names are many, but the image is always the same. The prick of the spindle, the long enchanted sleep. In the oldest versions, her story is darker, tinged with the shadows of medieval superstition. Spindles were everyday tools, but they were also sharp, and sharp things were often wrapped in warning. You listen to the steady hum of the real spindle in the corner. The science of spinning is not dangerous, but the metaphor runs deep. Fibers are like time, loose and formless unless given direction. Twist them one way and they tighten. Twist them another and they loosen into nothing. Perhaps this is why the spindle so often appears in myths of fate. The Greek Moirai, spinning the threads of life. The Norse Norns, weaving the web of destiny. To prick a finger on a spindle in a fairy tale is not just to be wounded. It is to be caught in the machinery of time itself. The fire murmurs low, and you catch a glimpse of gold. It is not the warm gold of flame, but the cool, metallic gleam of something rarer. The thread Rumpelstiltskin spins. Here is a story of impossible transformation, straw into gold. Scientifically, such a thing is nonsense. Chemically, the atoms of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen that make up straw cannot transmute into the heavier, denser atoms of gold. But the image is irresistible, and in the world of the story, it is as simple as the whir of a wheel, and yet there is truth hidden here. In the right light, a freshly spun flax thread shines like pale gold. Silk drawn from the cocoon of a caterpillar gleams even more. The human brain is tuned to notice this kind of shimmer, because for our ancestors, sheen meant quality, strong fiber, clean water, healthy food. So the idea that spun thread could become gold is, in a way, an exaggeration of a real sensory pleasure. The stories mingle, as they always do, their borders soft. In one corner of Europe, a Cinderella may wear a gown woven from starlight. In another, a sleeping beauty's briars may be spun into a rope to climb a tower. In the kitchens and hearths where they are told, these tales are less about perfect plots than about moments. A gleam of gold in straw, the hush of 100-year sleep, the rustle of ash-stained skirts. You think about how they traveled before. Books, stories moved the way thread moves through a loom, in and out, back and forth, carried by those who knew how to handle it. A merchant's wife might bring a French salon tale to a German village. A farmhand might hear a traveling singer's version and repeat it by firelight a week later. Each telling was a small act of editing, a detail added here, a phrase dropped there, the whole thing adjusted to fit the rhythm of the room. And rhythm matters. Neuroscience tells us that when we hear a story in a steady, measured cadence, our brains enter a kind of synchronized state. The listener's brain waves align with the speaker's, a phenomenon called neural entrainment. It is why bedtime stories are so effective for children, and why the same slow telling can still soothe an adult. The rise and fall of a voice is like the twist and release of the spindle, a gentle alternation that builds. In that pause, you hear the softer sounds, the faint scratch of a mouse in the thatch. You are reminded that sound, too, is a kind of thread. It travels in waves, each one stretching and compressing the air, carrying shape and tone across the room. Once heard, it lives in the mind, replayed and reshaped like a story told again and again. The spinner starts again, and the hum resumes, wrapping itself around the storyteller's voice. You feel them working together, the voice and the wheel, two circles turning in time. The thread lengthens, the story lengthens. Both will be used for something. The thread for a garment or cloth, the story for another night, another room, another listener. Slowly, you begin to sense that you are part of a long chain, not just of listeners, but of hands. Hands that have fed fires, turned spindles, told tales. Hands that have twisted flax into linen, wool into yarn, words into memory. Every storyteller who came before has left you something, whether you remember their name or not. In the tiny details, the way Cinderella's slipper shines, the way the briars curl around the castle wall, the way the gold thread glints in the dark, the fire burns lower, the embers now a deep, dark red. Shadows reach farther into the room, touching the corners where the tales seem to wait for another night. Slow-moving stars, you sit back, letting the warmth soak into you. The stories still turn in your mind, threads of ash, briar, and gold weaving themselves into something that feels both old and newly made. You think of the science hidden in every gesture, the twist of fibers, the chemistry of flame, the physics of sound, and you think of the magic that lives beside it, not replacing it, but walking alongside it, the part that turns flax into gold. Sleep into a century, a cinder girl into a queen. The room is very quiet now. The embers have settled into a steady glow. The spindle has come to rest. Somewhere, far away, another fire is being fed. Another wheel is turning. Another voice is shaping an old story into something new. ocean dreams, and salted longing. You step from the snow-bright fields into the hush of another night, and ahead you hear the distant sigh of water. It's a low, rhythmic sound, not a river, which hurries, nor rain, which scatters, but something slower, deeper, and older. The path beneath your feet softens into sand, and the air takes on a taste mineral, briny, faintly metallic, that reaches the back of your throat. You know, even before you see it, that the sea is near. When you reach the shore, the moon is high. Its reflection trembles on the black surface, stretching and breaking with each gentle swell. Waves arrive one after another, each folding into white lace before sliding back into the dark. There is a pattern to it, a tempo as steady as breathing. Draw in, let go. Marine scientists call this the wave period, the interval between crests. But standing here, it feels more like the heartbeat of the planet, somewhere beyond the shimmer. The ocean floor drops away into midnight in the shallows. Light still touches the sand, but only for a short distance. The physics of water swallowing brightness. Water molecules scatter light differently than air. Reds and oranges vanish first, then yellows, until only blue and green remain. Go deeper still, and even those fade, leaving a darkness so complete it feels almost solid. This is the kingdom, where stories like The Little Mermaid are born, where what you cannot see is as important as what you can. The Little Mermaid first appeared in 1837, the creation of a Danish writer with a gift for weaving longing into words. Hans Christian Andersen's tale is not the softened version that floats in popular memory. His mermaid does not marry the prince, nor live happily on land. Instead, she trades her voice for a chance at love, and when the chance fails, she dissolves into sea foam, not as a punishment, but as a release. It is a story shaped by the same forces that shape the shoreline, the pull of desire, the inevitability of change, the tenderness of letting go. In Andersen's Denmark, the sea was never far away. It was both boundary and invitation, a place where ships vanished into mist and returned with news of other worlds. His mermaid was part of a much older chorus, sirens from Greek myth who lured sailors with song, selkies from Scottish and Irish shores who shed their sealskins to walk as humans, rusalki from Slavic rivers and lakes, both beautiful and dangerous. Each culture gave the water its own voice, but always the same human question floated beneath. What would it be like to cross from one world into another, and could you ever return? The tide creeps closer to your feet, cool and insistent. It carries more than water. Dissolved in every drop are traces of the land it has touched, fragments of stone, flecks of shell, whispers of rivers. Oceanographers call this salinity, a measure of the salt that gives the sea its taste. Most of it comes from the slow work of rain wearing down rock, carrying minerals into streams, then rivers, then the ocean. It is a recipe written over millions of years, stirred by the turning of the earth and the moon's patient pull. You crouch and let your hand sink into the foam. Bubbles cling to your skin, each one a thin film, holding a miniature world of reflections. Surface tension, the invisible skin formed by water molecules linking together, is what makes the bubbles hold. Break the film, and it vanishes in an instant, like a story forgotten. But while it lasts, it holds the moon, the stars, and your own face in fragile suspension. Somewhere in that fragility lives the mermaid's song. In the tale, it is said to be more beautiful than anything on land. Science tells us that sound travels differently in water, faster, smoother, farther. A whale's call can carry for hundreds of miles through the right layers of ocean, bending with currents and temperatures, finding paths we call sound channels. Perhaps this is why ocean-born songs feel so haunting. They are shaped by a medium that cradles sound as the air never could. You close your eyes and let the soundscape wrap around you. The waves have layers, a crash near the shore, a lower roar from farther out, the faint hiss of retreating foam. It is a rhythm that could lull anyone into drowsiness. And indeed, studies have shown that wave sounds can slow the heart rate, encouraging the body to rest. Your breathing falls into step with the tide, in with the wave, out with the wave. In old fishing villages, people could read the sea by sound alone. The pitch of the waves against the rocks, the distance between breaks, the way wind carried over. Water, all could tell a listener about approaching storms or safe passages. The ocean was both a map and a story, written in waves instead of words. To step into it, or even to fish from it, was to become part of its plot. A shape moves beyond. The breakers, perhaps a seal, perhaps nothing but the heave of the swell. For a moment, you think of the Selkie stories in which a human falls in love with one who belongs to the sea. In many of these tales, the love is real but cannot last. To keep the Selkie ashore is to keep them from their true self. It is the same longing that hums in The Little Mermaid. The knowledge that love may require losing what you are. You think about how water itself is it is the only common substance that naturally moves between solid, liquid, and gas within the range of Earth's temperatures. Ice can melt into liquid, liquid can vanish into vapor, and vapor can condense back into rain. In this way, water cycles endlessly through the world, through clouds and rivers, oceans and bodies, always returning, but never quite the same. Perhaps it is this quality that makes it such a ready home for stories of transformation. The tide begins to turn, each wave reaching a little less far up the sand. Somewhere out in the dark, vast currents are in motion, the global conveyor belt of the ocean, driven by differences in temperature and salinity. It can take 1,000 years for a drop of seawater to complete the circuit, traveling from polar depths to tropical shallows and back again. In that time, it will pass through countless lives, plankton blooms, coral reefs, schools of fish, the nets of sailors, the cupped hands of children on the shore. You walk along the water's edge, and each step sinks softly into the wet sand. The prints you leave are filled in almost at once, as if the sea prefers its own blank page. It reminds you of how stories fade when they are not told, not lost exactly, but absorbed back into the great storehouse of memory and myth, waiting for another voice to draw them out. In some coastal towns, people still tell sea stories by the fire on winter nights. They speak of lights that move under the water, of ships seen and never seen again, of songs that come on the wind from nowhere. Modern science can explain some of these bioluminescent plankton mirages, the way sound bends over water. But the explanations do not erase the wonder. If anything, knowing the mechanism can deepen the magic, as if the machinery of the world itself were a kind of fairy tale. You stop and let the next wave wash over your feet. The water is cool, but not unfriendly. It retreats, then returns, like someone who has more to say, but is shy about saying it. In the moonlight, the foam looks silver. In the shadow, it is nearly black. It is the same water, only the light has changed, a reminder that perspective can transform even what is constant above you. The stars scatter in their own slow tide. The constellations drift imperceptibly as the earth turns beneath them. For sailors before GPS, these patterns were not just stories, but tools, ways to find direction on an otherwise featureless sea. The little mermaids, sisters in Andersen's tale, could not follow her onto land. But perhaps they could have found her anywhere by reading the sky. The night deepens, and the sound of the waves becomes more distinct in the cool air. You imagine the mermaid's final moment, dissolving into foam. Her story carried forward, not by her own voice, but by the voices of others. In this way, she is like the sea itself, always present, always moving, always passed on. The tide is low now. You can see more of the beach, more of the wet sand gleaming in the moonlight. The water will return, as it always does, reshaping the line between sea and shore, between here and away. You wonder how many times this has happened, how many nights like this have existed, with someone listening to the same endless breathing of the water. The forest of sweetness and shadows. Rain drips from pine needles as you step into a forest older than memory. Hansel and Gretel walk ahead, their footprints vanishing on the damp path. Every shadow here bends softly, never to frighten, only to remind you how deep the woods go. The first drop lands softly on your sleeve, cool. It slides toward your wrist and disappears into the fabric. The rain here is not a downpour, but a patient tapping, each drop arriving with its own quiet signature. Overhead, the pine canopy filters the sound so that the forest feels like it's breathing in slow harmony with the weather. The path is damp, but not muddy. Ferns curl at the base of tree trunks, their fronds glistening. Pine needles cover the ground in a thin, soft layer, muting your footsteps. Somewhere in the distance, you hear a steady rhythm, two sets of smaller steps ahead of you, light but purposeful, Hansel and Gretel. They do not turn when you follow, though you sense they know you are there. The boy carries something in his hand, and you catch the glint of pale crumbs dropping behind him. The girl's hair catches the dim light that seeps through the branches, swinging gently as she walks. Their path is deliberate, though the forest around them seems endless. Forests have always been both refuge and trial for humans. Long before there were towns, the woods were shelter, offering food, water, fuel, and materials for shelter. The Hansel and Gretel tale carries echoes of both sides of this truth. The sugar house is a promise of comfort in the heart of the unknown, but it is also the lure that tests the traveler's caution. You walk deeper, and the air changes. There is a sweetness in it now, not sugar, but resin, the scent of sap seeping from pine bark. Pine resin contains compounds called terpenes, which give it its sharp, bright smell. These chemicals protect the tree from insects and fungi, but for you, the scent is a reminder of winter holidays, of fires crackling indoors, of safety. Your brain links scent and memory in an instant, the work of the olfactory bulb, which sits close to the brain's emotional center. The children's footprints fade on the damp path. Moisture swells the pine needles, making them spring back into place after each step. In this way, the forest erases small disturbances quickly, keeping its floor in a state of quiet renewal. Ecologists call this resilience, the ability of an ecosystem to absorb change and still return to balance. It is the same quality you sense in these trees, their slow growth, their patience in the face of storms, the way they bend without breaking. The rain grows softer still, more like mist. The air feels almost edible, cool, and saturated. Drops cling to every twig and needle, catching what little light the sky offers. They are standing at the edge of a clearing where the trees part to reveal something impossible and yet completely still. A house built not of wood and stone. The roof is tiled in something golden, perhaps baked pastry, perhaps caramel. Windows gleam like panes of hard candy. The smell is stronger here, a mix of vanilla, spice, and something darker beneath. The idea of a house made of sugar is older than the tale itself. Its cost made it almost mythical for most rural families, a treasure you could eat, but which might only appear on feast days. In famine years, the thought of such abundance would have been a dream almost too bright to bear. Historians suggest that Hansel and Gretel took shape during such a time, perhaps in the 14th or 15th century. From a biological view, is the taste of energy. On your tongue, receptors bind to sugar molecules, sending signals to your brain that fuel is at hand. For early humans, sweetness often meant ripe fruit or honey, quick sources of calories, in a world where food was not guaranteed. That deep-rooted association is why the scent of a gingerbread wall can make the mouth water even when the stomach is full. The house glows faintly in the dim clearing, though no lamps are visible. Light here feels different, softer, as if filtered through sugar itself. You step closer and see that the walls are not perfect. Terrain will melt sugar, wind will scatter crumbs, moss will creep up over sweets. Nothing remains untouched forever. Hansel and Gretel do not knock. They move to the wall and break off small pieces, tasting cautiously at first, then more eagerly. For a moment, you think of the joy in their faces, but then you remember the other side of the tale, the figure who lives inside, the one who waits for wanderers to come too close. The witch in the story is not simply a villain. In older tellings, she is less magical than practical, someone who uses what she has to survive. The candy house is her lure, but also her defense. Only those who are desperate or reckless will approach it. The rain stops, leaving a softened silence. Drips still fall from high branches, a delayed echo of the shower. The air feels fresher, washed clean, and with it comes the faint smell of wet earth geosmin, a compound released by soil bacteria. Humans are so sensitive to geosmin that we can detect it at concentrations as low as a few parts per trillion, a trait that may have helped our ancestors find fresh water after rain. You step back from the house and look around the clearing. The forest beyond is darker now, its shadows deeper for the light that pools here. You realize how easy it would be to lose your way. Forests can disorient even experienced walkers. Without landmarks, the brain's spatial memory can falter, especially under low light. In Hansel and Gretel's tale, the crumbs fail to guide them home, not because the idea is flawed, but because the forest has its own keepers, birds, insects, wind that make paths vanish. The children disappear inside, and you do not follow. Instead, you turn your gaze upward. The tops of the pines sway gently against the pale sky, their branches whispering to one another. Somewhere far off, a woodpecker taps, its steady rhythm joining the layered percussion of the forest. Forests have their own kind of music, tuned to the slow tempos of growth and decay. Each pine needle that falls will take years to break down, feeding the soil in ways too gradual to notice. Day by day, fallen logs become nurseries for fungi and insects, which in turn feed birds and mammals. In this way, the forest is both sweetness and shadow, offering sustenance, but always under the condition of patience. You walk on, leaving the clearing behind. The air grows cooler, the path narrower. The moss is thicker here, absorbing nearly every sound you make. You begin to feel that the forest is closing gently around you, not to trap you, but to keep you. Your pace slows, matching the long rhythm of the trees somewhere behind you, perhaps. Hansel and Gretel are making their bargain, deciding how to escape, deciding what to take from the house. You will not see them again tonight, but their story will follow you, a reminder that sweetness can be found, but must be carried carefully through the shadows. Bears, stars, and snow. The snow is so fine it moves like smoke over the ground. It curls around your ankles in slow swirls, carried by a wind that has been traveling across the fjord all night. Above you, the sky is dark, but not empty. It is stitched with pale silver, threads, constellations, each one a needle prick of light in a cloth of deep blue. The moon hangs low, its light diffused through a thin haze, making the snow glow faintly from within. You hear nothing but the faint hiss of the wind, the occasional groan of shifting ice along the shoreline. And then a shape. It stands at the edge of the frozen water, a white bear, massive and still, as though carved from the very snow. Its breath clouds in the air, drifting upward like a second kind of smoke. When it turns its head toward you, the motion is slow, deliberate, the kind of movement made by something that knows it is the largest, strongest thing in sight. This is the beginning of the tale, east of the sun, west of the moon. In the old Norwegian version, the bear comes to a girl's family home, offering wealth in exchange for her company. She agrees, and he carries her away, not to a den, but to a castle, where he is both her protector and something more mysterious. The story unfolds like snow over many nights, layers of trust, curiosity, loss, and the long journey to find what is lost again. The bear is not just an animal in this tale. He is a bridge between worlds. In Norse myth and in Arctic cultures, bears have always been both feared and revered. To hunt one was to face danger and power directly. To see one in dreams was to be touched by the deep forces of winter. The white bear in this story carries a touch of enchantment, as if his fur has caught the light of every full moon he has ever walked under. You step closer, and the bear does not move away. Instead, he turns toward the horizon, toward the place where the fjord's edge blurs into distance and begins to walk. His paws leave deep, rounded impressions in the snow, each one a small hollow filled with shadow. You follow, your steps fitting into his, the snow creaking faintly under your boots. The constellations shift slowly above you. One of them catches your attention. Ursa Major, the Great Bear, its brightest stars forming the familiar dipper shape. For thousands of years, this pattern has guided travelers across both land and sea. In Norse mythology, it was called Karlsvognen, Karl's wagon, and it rolled steadily around the northern sky, never setting, always pointing toward the North Star. This constant presence may be why bears and stars are so often linked. Both roam wide, but both can be followed. When you tilt your head back, the cold air seems to pour into your lungs more sharply. Starlight travels years to reach your eyes, crossing emptiness so vast that your mind cannot hold it all at once. And yet, here it is, gentle, steady, as if it has been waiting for you. The bear leads you inland, toward a slope of snow-covered pines. Shadows stripe the white ground, long and blue in the moonlight. Here, a flicker of movement catches your eye, smaller than the bear, quicker. A fox, its fur pale enough to vanish, if not for the sharp line of its tail. In the north, the fox is as much a figure of story as the bear, though in a different register. Where the bear is strength and patience, the fox is cunning and adaptability. In Japan, the kitsune is a shapeshifter, able to take human form, often to teach a lesson or to cause a little chaos. In Irish tales, foxes are sly messengers between the human world and the other world, moving freely through both. Russian folklore gives us the Lisectica sestrika, the little fox sister who outsmarts stronger creatures through quick thinking. The fox here seems to pause deliberately in your path. It tilts its head as though to measure you and then darts away, leaving a neat trail of paw prints that glitter with frost. For a moment, you are aware of how many stories walk alongside you in this snow: Norse, Japanese, Irish, Russian, each carrying its own lessons. Some say, be strong. Some say, be clever. Some say, never stop walking. The bear pauses at the crest of a ridge. From here, you can see far, the fjord stretching away under moonlight, the forest below, the scattered lights of a village on the far shore. Above it all, the aurora begins to move. It starts faintly, like a smudge of green across the stars, but soon it grows, curling and folding in the sky. The northern lights are born from the meeting of solar winds and Earth's magnetic field. High above, where the air is too thin for breath, charged particles strike oxygen and nitrogen, releasing photons, tiny packets of light that ripple across the darkness in colors the eye struggles to name. Watching the aurora feels like reading a story written too high to touch, yet meant for you all the same. It reminds you that the sky's beauty is not still, but alive, shaped by forces you cannot see. The bear sits, a vast shadow against the snow, and you sit beside him. The fox is gone now, its trail already softening under the wind. You realize that your journey tonight is not toward a single ending, but through a landscape where endings are only resting places. In east of the sun, west of the moon, the girl must travel to the edge of the world to find her lost bear. She meets beings older than mountains, the north wind, the east wind, the west wind, before finally riding the south wind to the place beyond maps. The story tells us that some distances cannot be crossed in haste. They require time, endurance, and a willingness to face the cold. The snow begins to fall again, larger flakes now, soft and slow. They land on your coat, your hands, the bear's fur. Each one is a tiny piece of geometry, a frozen crystal built in the quiet of a cloud. Snowflakes form when water vapor freezes onto dust particles, building outward into hexagonal shapes. The exact path each flake takes, the temperatures and humidity it meets, decides its final form. No two are the same, because no two journeys are the same. That the bear turns his head toward you, and you feel a calm weight in his gaze. It is not the sharpness of the fox's look, but something steadier, as if to say, you will keep walking, you will find your way. The stars above you, the snow beneath you, both are maps, if you learn how to read them. The aurora fades slowly, it's green-washed back into the black-blue sky. The constellations remain silent guides. You rise, and the bear begins to walk. Again, his path now leading toward the dark line of the forest. The snow closes behind you, erasing your trail, but you do not look back. Somewhere beyond this night lies another story, another set of footprints in the snow. Whether it leads east of the sun or west of the moon, you will follow. The last candle and the gentle fade. The flame is small now, It bends gently to one side, its glow leaning toward the curve of the glass as if seeking rest. The wax has softened into a pale pool around the wick, edges curling low. The one-stall candle, now a quiet shape, barely taller than your hand. The room is darker than it was when you began tonight's travels. Shadows have stretched themselves into comfortable shapes along the walls, their edges softened by the golden pulse of the flame. You can still see the faint shine where the light touches the wooden table, the gentle gloss on the spine of a nearby book, the reflection caught in a window pane that now shows only your own dim outline. Outside, the night is still, the kind of stillness that is not silence, but a careful layering of sounds, the faint tick of cooling pipes, the low breath of the wind pressing against the eaves, the distant shuffle of leaves or snow, depending on the season that wraps your home. Each sound feels like it is stepping softly so as not to wake you, or perhaps not to disturb the candle's last watch. You lean back. Your body has carried the weight of many worlds tonight, seas of mermaids and moonlit fjords, forests of sugared houses and fox trails, the endless constellations that sew sky to earth. Each story rests now somewhere behind your eyes, as if they have drifted into you like snow through an open door, melting gently into memory. It is an old thing, this act of ending a night with a story. Before books, before ink, there were voices around fires, voices carrying tales across the dark so that no one sat alone inside it. A circle of light in the wilderness was more than warmth. It was safety, and it was the beginning of dreams. Stories then were not only for sleep, but for survival. Lessons disguised in the fur of foxes or the scales of fish, maps hidden in the patterns of the stars in the low flicker of the candle. You can almost see that ancient fire circle, figures seated close, shadows dancing behind them. Someone speaks, and the air changes, charged not with danger, but with the pull of listening. The storyteller's hands move with the words, tracing shapes that shift between bear and bird, river and wind, and in that circle, long before you were here, someone closed their eyes to the sound and dreamed. The flame wavers. It draws your focus the way a tide draws the shore. The wick glows deep at its base, holding the last ember even when the flame bows low. This little light has been with you for hours now, marking time not in minutes, but in the way wax has slowly surrendered its form. Every flicker is a heartbeat. Every soft crackle is a breath. There is a point in every night when the body begins to feel the weight of rest pulling gently at it, a gravity not of the earth, but of the mind. You feel it now, that slow deepening, as if the mattress beneath you has grown softer without you moving at all. Your hands rest loosely, no longer curled or tense. Your breathing matches the rhythm of the candle's sway. You think of all the journeys tonight's stories have taken you on. The mermaid's song, full of longing and saltwater spray, the sugar-scented air of the forest, and the careful steps through its shadows. The white bear at the fjord's edge, the fox's quick glance, the aurora's curtain folding across the stars. Each of them still exists, somewhere just beyond the reach of waking, continuing, even now without needing you to guide them. It is one of the quiet truths of storytelling. No tale ever truly ends. It may pause, as the candle will, but in some unseen place, it keeps going. A river that runs beneath the floor of your dreams. When you wake, you may remember only fragments, but the rest will have carried on in the dark, weaving itself into new shapes, ready to be found again. The candle lowers itself in its glass, the wax now shallow and still. Its light reaches only a few inches from the flame, leaving the rest of the room in a calm, unbroken dimness. You feel the soft coolness of that shadowed space. It is not cold, only quiet, a place where nothing is required of you. Somewhere far away in time, someone else is ending their night this same way. A lamp burning low in a clay dish, a fire guttering in the hearth, a phone screen dimming as the final lines of an audiobook fade. Different centuries, different tools, the same closing of the day, the same permission to rest. Your eyes move between the flame and the darkness beyond it. There is a moment when they begin to blur together, the way horizons do just before night fully arrives. The world beyond the candle is no longer separate from the one inside your mind. They are both softened now, both ready for the gentle fade. You think of the ember. When the last curl of flame pulls inward, the ember will remain a small red heart in the wick's center. It will glow quietly for a while, as if the candle is holding on to the memory of being light. And then, when it has given away the last of its heat, it will cool, not as an ending, but as a promise. Tomorrow night, another flame will rise. Another story will begin. The wax's surface ripples faintly as the flame shifts with the smallest current of air. Perhaps it is the sigh of the house, or the breath you didn't realize you had released. The scent of the candle, faintly honeyed, faintly wood smoke, mingles with the night air, settling into the kind of fragrance you will only notice when you are almost asleep. Your breathing slows. Your shoulders grow heavier against the pillow. You are no longer following the candle's movement. It is following yours, swaying gently as you drift closer to the place where stories and sleep meet. The wick leans once more. The glass around it catches the light in a soft curve. The flame folds smaller, smaller still, and then, with no sound at all, it draws in on itself and is gone. The darkness is complete now, but it does not feel empty. It feels full of the mermaid's tide, the bear's snowy breath, the sugar path through the woods, the constellations still steady in the northern sky. They are here with you, not as scenes to watch, but as dreams to enter. Somewhere in that darkness, the ember's heat still lingers, fading gently, carrying you with it. The story has not stopped. It has only passed into the place where you will walk beside it until morning. Thank you for joining me tonight in the forest of dreams, here on Whispers of the Night. May your sleep be deep, your dreams gentle, and your heart light. Until next time, good night.